The Candy Caravan. We lived together as a family. In the land of the Candy Caravan, where everyone had exactly the right amount of wonkiness and everything was possible in the imagination of the puppet maker, there was a puppet dog called Sunshine and her family of rod puppet puppies. Rufus, Polly, little Dana, and the dog with the question mark tail. This is a story about an unexpected arrival. The Candy Caravan was a workshop. Not any old workshop, but the workshop of a puppet maker. She had not always had this workshop. Before she had been a puppet maker, she had travelled the world of work, because everyone has to make a living, even if all they want to do is make puppets. Just before bedtime, when her imagination was especially active, she would make a cup of tea and get out her paints and sketchbook. In the quiet stillness of the fading light, she painted pictures of the next puppet story, which she put on her notice board to dry. You may have seen one of these already. Inside the Candy Caravan, there was treasure. Not gold and silver and jewels, but all the treasures a puppet maker needs. There were benches and tables and pieces of fabric, paint pots and brushes and big bags of clay, scissors and staples and mountains of paper, old plastic bottles and boxes of tape. There were pencils and cardboard, toolkits and drawings, odd bits of doweling and a needle and thread. 3 pairs of glasses, 1 broken, 1 breaking, 1 chair, 2 mugs, and the put-you-up bed. It was Sunday, the quiet day. It was a Sunday much like all the other Sundays, and the puppet puppies had been let out for their morning run at 9 o'clock sharp. This was the exact time that the puppet maker considered to be the right time for dogs to start barking near their neighbours. Every morning, the puppet maker would open the door and all the puppies would tumble down the little steps and out into the garden. On this particular morning, just like all other mornings, rain or shine, Rufus, the largest puppy, was the first one out. He'd already been whining at the door for at least 10 minutes and had considered scratching it, but as he was also aware that this was against the rules of the Candy Caravan, he whirled round and round on the spot, sniffing frantically at the thought of the morning air seeping in through the cracks. As the door began to open, he pushed his way through, bounded out, and head down ran the whole length of the garden, wagging his tail furiously. Every day, he would stop suddenly at a specially selected part of the lawn and paw and paw and paw the ground, doing little crossover movements with his front legs, finishing with a flurry at the back, like all dogs. He loved doing this, and when he did so, he looked at the puppet maker as if to tell her why, but she'd never really understood what he wanted to say. Then came Polly. She also dashed about excitedly, but she was more concerned with sniffing than digging up the lawn. She loved to feel the morning dew on her nose, so much of her activity took place in the flower beds. Sunshine was the next one out. Right alongside her was little Dana, the smallest of the litter. The steps to the Candy Caravan were really too high for her, and so from time to time, Sunshine would carry her down to the flower beds by the ruff, which all puppies, real or puppet, have, and a very useful feature it is too. The last one out was the dog with the question mark tail. Unlike other puppet puppies, his tail was in fact shaped like a question mark. His name suited him very well, as often he was the puppet puppy who was the most inquisitive. He was also very clever. He had discovered that if he waited until everyone was outside, not only would he have a moment of peace in the big basket all to himself, but he could quietly take any remaining biscuits that the others had left from the night before. Our little puppies played all day, discovering more about the world and learning how to live happily. They loved to read and to paint and to make music together. But most of all, they loved to watch the puppet maker at her workbench, creating all sorts of marvellous new things. The Candy Cane Caravan was at the bottom of a very fine garden. Not a manicured garden with neat edges of lawn and flower pots all in a row, but a country garden full of nature's bounty, where the birds and beady-eyed field mice came to look for seeds and the hedgehogs could shuffle and snuffle under the tall grasses. You would be just as likely to find a sturdy beetroot shoot reaching up among the bobbing heads of the daisies as spotting a lettuce hunkered down between two stately delphiniums. But everything had its place, and everything was just right. At the end of the garden was a gate. On this particular morning, when the puppet puppies were considering their usual plan of crawling underneath and digging up the carefully planted onions in the garden next door, they noticed something different. Thrown over the gate was a cardboard box. This was new. This was strange. This was unexpected. The dog with the question mark tail made the first move. Now, this stripy little dog, who looked like a dog, but had the courage and the coat of a tiger, was full of adventure. He stood on the big stone next to the gate, hooked his front paws over the edge of the box and peered inside. You could tell from the tilt of his head that he had found something very interesting. He looked toward the Candy Cane Caravan as if to alert the puppet maker. She was sitting on the steps, drinking her morning tea and reading her paper with glasses that were nearly broken and a bit distracted. One by one, the other puppet puppies walked over to the box to investigate. Polly sniffed it, and little Dana pawed it. But Rufus, who'd been waiting all night to go outside, lifted his leg on it. Oh! Now, the big difference between a real dog lifting his leg and a puppet dog lifting his leg is that when a puppet dog does this, nothing comes out. Even so, Sunshine, who'd been watching over all the puppies, barked at him. Rufus wandered off to find somewhere else to perform his antics. The dog with the question mark tail began to nudge the box up the garden path. The puppet maker, who by now was fumbling in the grass for her glasses, looked up. She ambled over to the dog with the question mark tail, picked up the box and took it inside the Candy Cane Caravan to her work table. What she found made her imagination come to life. There was a wire coat hanger, a pair of old slippers, a newspaper, a plastic bottle, a jacket with black buttons, an almost empty box of tea bags, and 2 well-chewed tennis balls. The puppet maker smiled, eyes twinkling with creative ideas. And then she shut the door to the Candy Cane Caravan, leaving all the puppet dogs on the steps outside. There they sat, quietly and respectfully, until it was nearly dark. They sat very, very quietly and very, very respectfully, but coming from inside, there was a lot of noise. Banging, bashing, drilling, sloshing, and the gentle purring of the sewing machine. What was happening in there? The puppet dogs waited, and waited, and waited. Puppies are always very patient, which is an entirely good thing. A light went on inside, and the dogs waited some more. Then the sounds changed. And instead of banging, bashing, drilling and purring, there was a crashing, dropping, breaking and smashing. The door to the Candy Caravan swung open, and inside there was mess everywhere. One of the puppet maker's mugs was lying in pieces on the floor. The startled puppet puppies crept inside, huddled together in the big basket and looked around. Sitting on top of the table was a new puppet dog. Sitting on the chair was a smiling puppet maker. "This is Oliver," she said, grinning from ear to ear. "He's going to be living with us for a while." The new dog looked up. The new dog looked around. The new dog made his decision and jumped. He jumped over benches and tables and pieces of fabric, paint pots and brushes and big bags of clay, scissors and staples and mountains of paper, old plastic bottles and boxes of tape. There were pencils and cardboard, toolkits and drawings, odd bits of doweling and a needle and thread. 3 pairs of glasses, 1 broken, 1 breaking, 1 chair, 2 mugs, and the put-you-up bed. And in a surprisingly enormous jump, he leapt off the tabletop, straight into the basket of puppets, and landed on Sunshine's head, from where he tumbled onto the floor. There was a gasp. They all looked towards Sunshine, and down towards Oliver, and back to Sunshine again. There was a moment of difficult silence. And then Sunshine burst out laughing, and they all joined in. The new dog jumped back up, squeezing himself into a tiny space in the big basket, which the other puppet dogs had made for their new companion. Oliver found his spot next to the dog with the question mark tail and fell fast asleep. He was definitely one of the family now. And when the playing was done and it was bedtime, Sunshine would be waiting for them by the big basket. "Good night, little puppies." The puppet maker put the kettle on, got her sketchbook and paints ready, made a cup of tea, and looked over at the sleeping puppet puppies and smiled.
It's the end of the day and time to say good night, sweet puppies, you're too tired to play. Good night, let's tuck you in tight, sleep all your cares away.
You too, Rufus.
It's the end of the day and time to say good night, sweet puppies, you're too tired to stay. Good night, close your eyes, sleep tight, dream all your cares away.
And how did the puppet maker create this jumpy little puppet puppy out of the contents of the thrown-away box? If you ask nicely and say please, someone may tell you.